really know what's going on over there other than everybody's dumb.
The instant you step out of line, you say something that they don't like and they don't like you personally, they're going to use all those pre-existing laws and they're going to use it on you.
A woman exposed her male genitalia to women and underage girls. That's what happened.
It's pure propaganda and it's super cringe, by the way. It's super cringe.
Super cringe. Eric Butler, us getting a copyright strike is super cringe indeed. We are.
It wasn't a copyright though, was it?
Sorry, it's copyright. That's what I'm used to in the past. It's a medical misinformation strike. So we're streaming live on Getter, Unauthorized Opinions, YouTube's my Streeter channel, as well as Twitch for some reason, and Twitter, of course, all the time, as usual. So I don't know what to say at this point, Eric. They don't really tell us what we're being taken down for. Can't live stream for a week. They did that to us today, even though it's been up for a week. So conceivably we won't be able to stream on the main channel next week as well.
Well, I guess it depends on, does it go like by the hour? So if it was in the AM, then I mean,
if only they told you,
And I just don't. Okay, it was still up on my channel, but I have removed it under your guidance because I don't want to get a strike and I don't want to not be able to post. But it's just a little strange. Like I wanted to rewatch it so I can maybe try to see what we said, but I guess it doesn't matter. Even if they told us, they would just move the goalpost again. So it's pointless, I guess.
Exactly. And when I can pull up the screen, I guess, but basically they just have a link to the full video and it says taken down for medical misinformation. You may review your video to see if it goes with our guidelines. So they don't even have to give you specifics. And the next thing is to review. And I didn't even click on that because I don't know, like, what am I supposed to do? I'm supposed to watch an hour and determine, because they in the end they want you to just delete it, which is what happened. So they don't want you to be able to, one, know what you did wrong. I don't believe they want you to know what you did wrong. And two, they don't want to have to prove what you did wrong. And three, they don't want to have to argue with you over whether or not you're giving proper information or not. Now, the WHO is still their standard for whatever reason. And it's just a sad state of affairs, Eric
But
Butler.
hasn't even the WHO at this point, well, it's obvious that they have flip-flopped on certain things. Maybe not quite as bad as Fauci, but none of it's clear anymore. And you know what? It doesn't matter.
Do they even issue guidance anymore?
They said something. And now I don't even know if I can say it because then we'll just get struck. I don't know. But yeah. And I probably shouldn't say it because I don't know exactly. But in the last week, I definitely saw a headline that I did not fully read. So perhaps it's best for me not to speak on it. But they have changed the wording on something, just like we saw Walensky only a couple days ago said that they are. What was the quote she said? We were pivoting the language or something like that. And I saw some people actually thought this was good. Like, oh, well, better late than never. It's like, dude, she's not pivoting. She's not pivoting in a good way. They're pivoting to say that we're not going to use the term fully anymore. We're going to use the term up to date, which is not a good thing, not a good pivot by any stretch of the imagination.
No, and this stuff is always changing anyways, and they're pretty much always wrong. So it doesn't really make it, like, it makes so little sense, and it's all crumbling apart now, but they've gotten a good 2 years of this. And
I had one of my like little short videos from probably a year ago got removed for medical misinformation, and it was literally me reading a New York Times article. I didn't pull it from Big Scary Breitbart or Rebel or any like common sense place. It was a New York Times article that basically was blaming white evangelicals for the continued pandemic because they are a big block of people that refuse to get the shot. And I was just saying, you guys, there's another big block of people that aren't getting the shot, but you're not going to talk about that. So, and that was medical misinformation from me reading from a Times article and pointing out that that group of people is not the only group of people to kind of object to this. And speaking of, really quick, there is a big protest, right? They're happening all over today. I am not at one. You are not at one, but just want to make it known that we know that that's happening. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to make it today, but I'd rather be here anyways.
I'll try to bring it up, but the other day, Friday, I wrote a article about Bryson getting another song banned within 20 minutes, I believe, for misinformation. This is a rapper I hadn't heard of, D Cure, I believe. I think it is Cure, however you want to pronounce that. Since I've been getting in a lot of trouble lately for my abouts. I know I've been watching Trailer Park Boys recently again for like the second go around ever, and they all say a boat. So I don't know what people are complaining about with me, but I definitely don't say a boat. It's not a boat time. I say about.
It's funny that you bring that up because I actually just started rewatching it as well, like last week. I literally just picked it back up because I finally finished Seinfeld for the like 17th time. So I went with Trailer Park Boys this time.
Well, I'm up to season 10 now. I didn't realize there was 12. When the first time I watched the newest ones, I didn't really like it with like Snoop Dogg and everything. But now rewatching it in order, the nuance of the characters is so funny, especially Randy's assistant, who's also
don't give it away. I'm not
cross dresser. Okay,
I'm literally like I literally just started season 1 all over again. So I've got.
Well, haven't you seen it?
No, dude. The last season I saw was maybe like 6 or 7 years ago.
Yeah, so once they finished, before they went on to Netflix, so back here, here's some Canadian history, Eric. It was like seasons like 1 through 6, where probably when we were both in high school, and we used to watch that and Kenny versus Spenny on Sunday nights and talk about it in gym class on Monday. And so I think there was I want to say 5 or 6 year gap between when they finished and then Netflix picked it up.
Yeah.
And then there was another gap between like seasons 10 and on another couple years. So
I might have seen like one of the early Netflix seasons of it, but I'm starting over from scratch. Don't ruin it for me. That's the point I'm trying to make.
I'll do my best. So basically Bryson and this other guy, it's a great song. Every time Bryson's coming up with a song these days, it seems to be a hit. But 20 minutes it took, and of course it's medical misinformation. There's probably a bunch of stuff they said in there that YouTube would say is medical disinformation. But this quote from Bryson, which I thought was hilarious, I asked him why he thinks he's being censored so much. He's like, I don't know. It's hard to get Bryson's voice. I don't know. I'm just repeating what the doctor said. Then I get banned. I should start rapping about selling dope and killing people. Then maybe they'll celebrate instead of banned. I'll be celebrating.
That's true.
And he's right. And what this does is this creates like this ridiculous standard. And I was talking about this with my friends recently because you're going to go for songs with medical misinformation. What other YouTube guidelines are you punishing in music? The answer is none, of course. But in reality, bullying would obviously be one. So you can't have like rap beefs at all. You can't talk about guns or show guns. Obviously, that's a lot of music videos gone. Sexually explicit content, targeting towards minors, drug use, all this stuff that should be, if we're following the rules, censored on these music videos. We're not doing it, but because a rapper from North Carolina says it, we have to take it down, correct?
Yes. And we see the same thing in real life, right? Because if you go to, I hate to beat the dead horse, but what you're seeing with Bryson is the same exact thing that we see in real life when they send 24 New York City police officers to stop people from eating at Applebee's. Meanwhile, a little girl has been, hit by a stray bullet. And I say, how many times have I said, you can go back to the early days of when the Reels first came out and I was posting Reels on Instagram, and I jokingly said that you were more likely to be struck by a stray bullet from the gun of a Brooklyn thug than you are to die from this virus. And here we are. They're sending 12 cops, 24 cops to stop people from going into a museum or going to Applebee's or Olive Garden. Meanwhile, people are getting shoved onto the train tracks. Little kids are being shot. Entire neighborhoods have turned into shooting galleries, but they don't stop that. It's very similar, right? So Bryson says one thing about, against the pharmaceutical cartel, and they get rid of him. Meanwhile, you got guys who I enjoy. I mean, no shade. I like Future, and we can still discuss that if you want to. But you have videos of guys who are literally serving time for rapping about crimes that they've committed, and those videos still exist on YouTube, which is insane.
Yeah, it's like being able to put up like, well, is there anything wrong with showing your own crimes? I mean, if you're being punished for them, then you can probably get away with posting your own armed robbery on YouTube. Who
But
knows?
it's like you made the song, while you were out and about, living in the world. But then you get, and speaking of, if I'm not mistaken, Jay-Z and some other rapper are trying to petition the government to not allow lyrics to be used in court cases. So you can literally rap about something that you did, get locked up, they can reference your lyrics, but the video stays up there, even though we now know 100% that you committed this crime. So Bryson is still up in the air. Anything that he says can probably be backed up by an I don't want to say incredible, that's a different word, but a non-credible doctor that Fauci doesn't like. But right, like we can point directly to their crimes and say you were convicted of this, but your video is allowed you to still rack up millions of views, so when you get out of jail you're going to be just fine with the record label and all this stuff. But if you say one thing bad about Fauci or the Poke or immunity or whatever touchy subjects that you're not allowed to talk about, you get banned, even though there's clearly an opposite side to that story. Whereas you committing a crime, rapping about it, getting convicted is just a factual story. You see what I'm saying? I don't know if that makes sense.
I do see what you're saying. It's
insane.
the reward. It's the rewarding of criminality that we're really seeing these days, and it's quite scary. I want to bring up this Penn State thing. I think we're getting feedback through your side, maybe.
Should I turn down a little bit?
Tra-la-la.
Is that better? Mic check. 1, 2.
Yeah, it's better, I think.
Okay.
I don't know. We'll see it. I guess we'll find out. Message us in the chat. I guess you can't through my regular one. Message me through youtube.com/Andrew Does. We're on Getter live right now. What else were we on? And stream for some reason.
Yeah, and definitely my channel, so you can go to my channel, and I think will the comments show through if anybody pops
The
up?
comments will show through if they do it on that one. So okay. I'm just hearing a little bit of myself on your side. But anyways, in any event, as they say, here is this story. Yeah, I'm just going to mute you while I'm talking. I think that's what the problem is. Yeah. Okay. Penn State swimmer alleges Leah Thomas colluded with fellow transgender athlete. Cisgender member of the UPenn women's swim team said she believes her transgender teammate colluded with the Yale transgender to lose. Now, we saw last week that the one transgender who shattered all the records lost to a different Ivy League transgender, Eric, and they're conspiring to make this happen. I don't really know. Do you have any insight into this before we just straight up read the article?
Well, the only insight that it's not actually insight. It's just that there's no other way that this can go except for get more exponentially bizarre, right? It's not like it's going to all just play out regularly and we're going to see the male swimmer continue to beat or you can't say male, or I don't even know the proper terms to use for these people, especially now we're walking on eggshells. We don't know if we're going to get censored. But the point I want to make is that this has nowhere to go but spiral out of control. It's not going to just come to a regular end. Of course, these people would be, because that's how manipulative and power hungry these people are. It's just, and we see this, okay, right? I've said this before about how I think the transgender movement kind of led us into this area where we're completely ignoring reality, and that's why people are scared to breathe air. And that's what we're seeing here. Like the COVIDians will always tell you it's about your health, and the transgender people will always tell you that it's just about tolerance, but it's not about health. It's not about tolerance. It's about complete control at every single level. So of course they're going to manipulate the situation so that the outcome will work in favor of their narrative. No matter what happens, no matter how bizarre it gets, they're still going to want you to believe it. And if you don't, you will be punished. And I'm sure I'm sure they're gonna, dead naming and all sorts of stuff. So that's all I have to say about it. We
Covidians.
can go. Mhm.
Covidians sounds like some sort of alien race. Let's read the article here. A biological female member of the University of Pennsylvania, I thought it was Penn State, swimming team said she believes her transgender teammate Leah Thomas colluded with a Yale transgender athlete so they could lose to prove a point. Okay, let's read on because that's already doesn't make any sense. Yeli Isaac Hennig, who's transitioning from female to male, beat Thomas in both the women's 100 and 400 yard freestyle races during Ivy League swim meet January 8th. Hennig was reportedly able to compete on the women's team because she had yet to start her testosterone treatment. So, still a woman, I guess? Okay, I understand now. Thomas, who's been shattering women's team records, become a lightning rod as her story gained national attention in recent months, previously competed as a man for 3 seasons at UPenn. Her biological female teammate told Outkick on condition of anonymity that she believes Thomas and Hennig hatched a plan during the recent meet. So, Eric, what I think this means is that whether or not the first transgender from Penn can beat the other transgender from Yale, they made sure that even though they could both beat the whole field, that the second person could beat the first person who's setting all these records, Eric, again, trying to prove that because this woman hasn't completely transitioned to male, that it doesn't matter. But what they don't realize is that the transgender person being beaten by the person who's transitioning into a female or transitioning into a male, like the odds of that happening, of that person being the only person who can beat the state record holder, doesn't make any sense. And they thought that this was a good plan, Eric.
Well, I think it does answer a couple of my questions because I think it was actually 2 weeks or maybe even 3 weeks. Whenever we talked about this, whenever it first happened, I was like, why did they even cross paths? And I think you said something along the lines of, well, of course, if she's pumped full of testosterone while the other one is getting pumped full of estrogen or testosterone suppressants or whatever, I don't know how this stuff works, then of course she could beat it. If she now, not to be crass, but she could be in the locker room before the swim meet, shooting up a whole bunch of testosterone. And then, of course, she could probably beat a man pretending to be a woman who's done just the opposite. So that was possible, I suppose. So this does answer a couple of questions as to they cross paths because this person has, of course, the
Oh my
scars.
God.
Yeah, this is just insane. And of course, it has to be a political thing. So he or she or they is pretending that, well, this is just normal. I'm going to go ahead and pop my top off just to prove, just to shove it in your face. And yes, to your point, it is. The odds are just so slim that of course they hatched this plan, or it's believable that they had to hatch this plan. And it kind of reminds me of that old story. Remember from last year, um, the soccer the soccer them that
Yes,
was,
the U.S. women's soccer team.
yeah, I think it
Only
was
to be
actually,
outdone by the non-binary Canadian soccer player.
yeah, exactly. Okay, and that's the non-binary Canadian. That's what I'm talking about. Who was claiming not to be a woman, but I'm like, wait, so you're not a woman, but you're not going to go play men's soccer because that's not going to work out for you. So you're going to still play women's soccer and say that you're not a woman, and you're going to take your shirt off and show your scars and all sorts of stuff. And look, bro, I just don't
Look at the
understand.
wingspan. This is before he became a woman. The Penn State or the Pennsylvania record holder. Look at the body frame. This is a man, and this is him dressing in a woman's
Oh,
outfit before he
oh.
transitioned. It's just like the insanity. And that other girl we show is going to
Wait,
end
wait,
up
wait, wait, wait. Hold on, hold on. So that is a photo.
Thomas previously competed as a man for 3 seasons.
So he was just wearing the women's gear
Yes.
when he was
It looks
competing as
so.
a
It looks
man.
like there's a guy in the background here
There is
who's wearing a mask, of course.
who's wearing a mask.
But like this girl's gonna regret this photo here because this is her just being like, "Isn't it great?" Before Buddy shatters all their records. So here's a big problem with this
Oh,
is that they're so wrapped up and they're so self-absorbed here that they thought that that everybody would be fooled, and they thought that it'd be a great point to prove that if the one state record holder, not one of these people, the one state record holder trans swimmer who shattered all the women's records in NCAA and kept beating these girls, lapped them, right? They thought that if we get the other transgender person going from female to male to come in first place, beating out the other person, they thought that would be proof that transitioning doesn't matter in women's sports. But what they don't understand, because they're so self-involved, that in order to allow that person to take first place, the other person would have to actually be able to beat all the other ones. Because if the first person's trying or not trying hard at all, and then 2 or 3 biological girls get ahead of them, then that doesn't make any sense. So they both realized that they're both going to come first and second, but the first transgender has to then let the second one win to try to prove some point. That's what doesn't make sense about it. That's why they're whatever you want to say is wrong with them right now. They thought this was a good way to showcase that there's no difference between transitioning athletes or transitioned athletes and the biological gender, but it doesn't make any sense because the second person who's transitioning from male or female to male still had to beat the rest of the field in order for this other person to let them win, who they said, the anonymous person said, wasn't even trying that hard. So if you think about it in like Usain Bolt sense, when he wasn't trying that hard and he only beat them by this little amount, the Pennsylvania trans athlete had to, still easily beat the rest of the field, but then slow down a bit so that the other transgender person who could also easily beat the rest of the field could then beat them. It doesn't make any sense. I don't know why they thought this would make sense. They're clearly at an advantage if they can collude between first and second place, and somebody can still watch them and say that they're not trying their hardest, Eric. My brain is going to explode here, I think.
Well, they think you're stupid. They think we're all stupid. That's the bottom line, is that we're going to trick you into believing that the entire human race, for as long as we've not, it doesn't matter, throw it out the window. And my main question here is this the Yale swimmer going to eventually make it to the men's team? Are you going to go pro as a man when you finish college? I mean,
no, they're not going to compete. They're not going to compete well at all.
And just, okay, so that person is not going to fully make the transition again, very similar to the soccer player that we saw last summer. But why? Again, it's all just for power, just so their narrative wins. It has nothing to do with inclusion. It has nothing to do with tolerance. It's just bludgeoning people to death. That's why it doesn't make any sense. They think you're stupid and they think you're just going to accept it. And unfortunately, they have. I mean, I posted, maybe you saw it onto my story. NBC News posted just last year, it wasn't even that long ago, that they literally had an article saying that evidence shows that even post-transition, male to female athletes have an advantage. And then almost exactly a year later, NBC News, the very same outlet, posts another article saying experts say that there's no evidence of advantage for transitional athletes or something like that. And it's like they just find, I mean, these scientists, with the dollar sign and the quotation marks, they just find these people to sort of go along with their narrative and pretend that we're all stupid. And that's why we're continuing to see censorship at every single corner, is because there's no room for, I mean, look at what Matt Walsh did, right? That went viral, where he talked to that bearded lady on Dr. Phil, and
who looks like Louis Brackpool from Rebel News, people are saying, by the way.
And I actually, it's funny that happened, because I was following that account because it was so bizarre to me. And you should see, I don't know if you've ever looked at it, but you should see some of the things that person posts. It's very I don't know if graphic is the word, but it's like, openly, like, naked, the beard, the boobs, it's all very insane. And of course, that person is famous now because of that. And now they're having nightmares or PTSD or whatever it is. And I'm just thinking about this right now. Unfortunately, we got banned last week. We got censored last week for medical misinformation. And, half an hour into this thing, we're already looking hate speech, directly in the face. So I don't know what we should do about that.
I have no idea, Eric. I just want to show everybody. This is what they tell you. I could show the YouTube page, but just as medical misinformation, we've removed it. How did it violate the policy? Well, click and fucking learn to find out yourself.
I also thought, of course, we're 2 episodes late now, but I realized when we hit 50 that we should have done like a celebration or a giveaway or something. We hit 50. We should have done something.
We should. Let's maybe for 60 or something, we'll try to have like some big guests and do something.
All right, fair enough. What else we got?
We'll make our own celebration. We've got an interesting story I read in Quebec, which of course is had curfews multiple times. They want to charge unvaccinated people with a tax. They bust into people's homes. Worst province for COVID in the entire country. They had a writer from the Montreal Gazette, and you know that's going to be good, who went to Florida and acts like an insane person, of course. So here's what we'll read a bit, then we'll, as an American, we'll get your reaction. Josh Freed, Florida feels like another planet compared with Quebec. During my visit, I saw some customers shake hands with their waiter as if to say, thanks, I'll have some germs for dessert, Eric. So, like, not, wow, look at this freedom. Oh my God, can you believe how unclean these people are? I have a confession to make. I recently fled Quebec for a week, a refugee from Curfew 2.0. Legault is the premier, the governor, and their confinement rules. So does he love them? I don't know. Fred told me about an available condo. My wife and I made a last-second decision to briefly escape and work remotely. But the second we landed, it felt like we'd arrived on another planet. While Quebec is in full confinement mode, Florida is cowboy land. I'm having trouble here because it's so stupid. Where you barely know COVID is happening despite much higher new case and hospitalization rates than ours. Probably higher hospitalization rates, probably because of the population's older. But as we all know, at this point, Florida is at the very worst middle of the pack. In fact, they've been towards the better side ever since staying open. It's lunacy by Canadian standards, but an eye-opening experience. For starters, everyone's out and about, filling bars, restaurants. Oh my goodness, they're doing things. Stores and supermarkets don't require masks, but some cashiers and customers wear them, though often under their nose or chin, Florida style. So that's just the first lie they want to tell you right now. People don't wear masks under their nose and stuff here. Then you should have seen me today at the stores, Eric, because as long as there's nobody around me, then I don't see the problem of just not having a mask on.
No, there's you could be shoulder to shoulder with somebody and it's over. It's over.
Of course.
But
you have to understand that people are under such mass psychosis up here that, like,
that's not real. That's fake news.
I just mean, like, old lady tightened N95 so that it's like about to pierce her skin. Her husband's got 2 masks on in front of we're in the lineup. She has to walk by somebody. She's so afraid. People are always looking at me because my mask is below my chin. Walmart people at Walmart care the least. I'm going to go ahead and say that. But elsewhere, you've got like it's not a mall or an outdoor plaza, but it's just like a bunch of stores next to each other. And walking outside, people are wearing their masks as they go between stores, 50 feet. Walking in mask as soon as they get out of their car, they're masked up driving away. And it's just like me and my girlfriend or our friends or like our group of like 4 or 5 will be walking around and we're just like, these people are insane. Like it's minus I don't know what the temperature would be. It's like 40 degrees outside and people think that they're going to catch it from 100 meters or 100 feet away from another person. It's just insanity. So in the United States, things may be over, but here, if you go into a populated area, people are still insane. Now in Toronto, they're way more insane than where I live, but there's still people who are afraid to walk by you. Most people don't care. I mean, the people in the pet store see me with my mask under my chin all the time, and they don't seem to care. But sometimes you'll get these looks, and then I just look right back at them, Eric, because I take the advice that I've heard is a person who's afraid of you not wearing a mask is also afraid to say anything to you. But I understand in a lot of places in the U.S., people get yelled at.
I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around this. It's still happening, and I was remembering that video of the former Surgeon General Jerome Adams. I don't know if you remember this, but he made a video at the beginning of COVID that was teaching people how to properly, or how to fashion a mask out of an old t-shirt and rubber bands, because the mask hysteria had swept the nation and you couldn't get a mask anywhere. It was just so scary. And so he was teaching people how to make a mask out of a t-shirt and rubber bands. The t-shirt also had the word naloxone on it, which is very triggering to me, but that's a completely different story. But then you fast forward almost 2 full years, almost 2 years, and what are we told? Cloth masks don't work. Get rid of them. So if that were the case, then why? How are we? How should we not be able to? How can we trust anything? Basically, you told us, you made a whole video explaining how to make a mask out of a t-shirt, and 2 years later they say actually those don't work at all. So why should we trust anything you say? It's the very same thing that we see with these. I don't need. I don't want to get banned. I don't know what we can say, but in the Bay Area, there's this testing site, this testing facility that just dropped the ball on 14,000 tests. They just, we didn't. People were waiting to get to hear back in 48 hours. Nearly 2 weeks went by, and they were just like, sorry about that. We dropped them. We literally dropped them off. The testing lab dropped them off at a different lab, and the other lab just didn't do it. So, I mean, why are we trusting the accuracy of the test? Why are we trusting that mass work? Because they flip flopped on that. Remember, Fauci said that it only makes common sense to wear. Yeah, remember it was like, well, it only makes common sense to wear too, and then he pulled back on that. And again, I don't. Perhaps that is it. Obviously, Fauci is not medical misinformation. He is the patron saint of this entire thing. So I'm not exactly sure why we are believing any of these people anymore. Truly, I mean, so are they gonna? They're gonna take. Is it gonna take another entire 2 years of brainwashing? If you started today in Canada and you just pump people full of it's safe to go outside, you can breathe the fresh air, enjoy your life. Would it take 2 years of that to get people out of this? How does this work?
I think that would take upwards of at least 3 months, because they would the same people are so unwilling to believe that they were lied to or misled or didn't read enough, that they would say no. The initial information that I put my life on is the one that I'm going to stick to, and in order to be safe, and they'll say it for 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, they'll say, I'm just going to keep wearing my mask because it makes sense. I should have been wearing a mask the whole time. Like, I don't want to get the flu, I don't want to get the cold, I don't want to get these other things. It makes sense for me. But as numbers start turning and people start looking at you weird for being the only person in a group with a mask on, that's when they'll start to change, I think, Eric. That's when it would actually change. But in Toronto, in Montreal, and a lot of Quebec, in these big cities in Canada, they want the government to take care of them. That's all they want. No matter what the government says to do, they're going to go along with, and they're not going to resist anything. Now, the trucker thing happening today, they raised $1 million. They're driving across Canada. They're supposed to meet in Ottawa to protest Trudeau. They're supposedly blocking some highways. That's the biggest thing to happen, and that's what kind of seems on purpose. I was talking yesterday about how if people actually boycott these places doing vaccine passports, then that works in the government's favor as well, because you're shutting down all these businesses. So the supply chain thing seems like it's on purpose, because you got to know that there's going to be a lot of unvaccinated truckers. So all this, as much as set up as it seems, people are still going to do exactly what they're told. And if the government says, now you can take it off, I think it would take them a while, a couple months, to get over their fears. But I still think there will be people like in Asia who will just wear a mask all the time because it makes them feel safe. They don't like the way they look, or they're afraid in general, and they'd rather live at home. Now, there's a person who, I don't even know how much of this I can say. Let's just say there's a person who recently quit their job that I know, and it seems to me, I don't know them too well, But I feel like the reason they quit is because they want the hypochondriac environment. They want this environment where they're told what to do, where they're masked up all the time. Um, and they were working at a place where they don't have to be masked. It's my conspiracy theory that this is a microcosm of a lot of people where they enjoy this environment where everything's so like, oh, stay away from me, oh, I don't have to talk to you, I can just order things and curbside pickup, and meet me at the door and hand it to me, stay away from me. There's a lot of people who've been living in front of their computers for the last 10 years. This doesn't seem like too much of a foreign concept to them, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and this is kind of like it's kind of like how when the backlash. So Starbucks, we're seeing like sort of an inverse with Starbucks and Carhartt, right? So Starbucks says we're not going to do it anymore. Carhartt says you still got to get the shot. But then the angry people, I think the ones that like the fear and they like the virtue signaling, or they like sitting in home ordering Chinese goods from Amazon or whatever it is, now those people are mad that Starbucks hasn't forced people to get the shot. I mean, think about that. Like, why, if you don't, I mean, I guess I could sort of understand if you were neck deep into this and you really believe all the science and all the Fauci stuff and you work there, then maybe you can say, well, I don't feel safe because I have to work here and it's not safe for me. But if you don't work at Starbucks and you just want them to force their employees to do something that you don't even really like, what does that mean for you? And I guess that's just to your point. It's like these people just they like the fear and they like being told what to do, and that way I don't have to think about it for myself because we all know that as far as Brian Stelter and Don Lemon are concerned, that doing your own research is a naughty word. You can't say that. You can't do your own research. We're the ones that tell you what to think. Like Mika or Mike or whatever her name is, like she would say, it's our job to tell you what to think. You're not supposed to be going outside of this realm. And again, just to bring it full circle, that's why we see all of this censorship every single time, because you're not allowed to have an opinion. And even if it's not censorship, you still get those notices. One of my recent videos that I posted to YouTube, not even on Instagram, but on YouTube, has the little notice. Oh, visit cdc.com. It's like, dude, you can't even have a thought without the tech overlords, Zuckerberg, or what's the Google guy's name? Trump used to say his name really funny.
Ajit Pai?
I forget if
I don't know.
Trump.
Susan Wojcicki is the other one.
It was funny how Trump used to say it. It's I'm blanking on it right now. But yeah, these guys are going to tell you that. Imagine if what this would be like, bro. If you were just out with your friends, or I'm here in Arizona, hanging out with some people, and when you said something, like a guy would just pop up and say, "Well," you know what I mean? Like, think about how truly absurd that is. Like, you're not allowed to say that. You need to click here and figure and read it from us because your opinion, you're not a doctor. What if I am a doctor? They don't even know. What if I was a doctor? Then what? I mean, this is just it has to hit the wall soon. I've been saying this for more than a year now, every single week. Hopefully this will wake some more people up. And I think it is happening. I truly do think it is happening. And that's why they're in these death throes of censorship. And I mean, we're gonna see in the next couple hours here what's really happening with these big protests. Like, so we have this protest against the mandates only a day or two after this anti-abortion rallies and stuff. So I think something is happening, but the media is not going to really tell you what's happening. They're going to tell you that, well, a couple of crazy anti-vax Trump supporters, or like 200 of them showed up, and they were racist. But who really knows? We weren't there. I'm not there. You're not there right now, so we don't really know. But hopefully, Avi and all the big I don't even know who to trust anymore. I guess Avi is still good, but there's a bunch of people who are going to show us what's really happening at these things, and hopefully it is. And if it's not even waking people up, it's just common sense people are at least standing up. If you don't want to wake up, fine, go back to sleep and get your 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th booster. I don't care. Do whatever you want to do, but I'm not going to do it, and we're going to stand up against this. And that was all medical misinformation. Oh, I don't know, bro. Oh.
Well, I want to read more of this article because I think it shows a perfect balance of like what kind of people these people are who are still, it doesn't matter how long it's been. It doesn't matter. They don't have to read anything. They just know, like, Omicron, obviously way like basic. I don't even want to get us pulled on other things. Omicron less severe. This is why we really got to get on Spotify and podcasts. I think. I know we're lagging on that, but
And what happened with Delta? Delta's gone. Is Delta gone?
they had to admit that the vaccine wasn't as effective on
Nope.
Delta as they claimed.
No, well,
anyways, so after he said the title track here, I'll have some germs for dessert. He says it's easy to spot Canadians at restaurants. We're the ones properly masked and nervously sitting on the terrace eating in the rain. If you actually cared, let me get us on full screen here. If you actually cared about the masking and the proper distancing, then why are you at the restaurant? If you're actually afraid of the virus and you're saying other people aren't masked properly and they're shaking hands and they're being stupid, then why are you there? You know subconsciously that you're not actually in danger. That's why your body is allowing you to be there. If somebody's walking around with a pistol, they're waving, a Glock in one hand and a flamethrower in the other hand, your brain and your body is going to tell you, get out of there. You're in danger. There's a poisonous plant here. There's a bright frog that I can't touch because it's going to kill me. Your body is going to tell you you're in danger. You sitting there with watching humans talk and touch each other is not your body telling you that you're in danger. You're convincing yourself when you fly back home or you go back to your Airbnb or your condo and write your stupid article that, only people doing podcasts are reading because nobody gives a shit about the Montreal Gazette. Now it's fearful. Now you're improperly masked. All these people are being idiots. But when you were there, you didn't care. When you were there, you didn't stand up and leave. When you were there, you were like writing notes and eating your dinner. But once you get home, you have to virtue signal so people don't just think, that you're AOC going to have a good time. I was there to report. I'm just a person following the rules. I could spot other Canadians. Don't ask if you're going to tell me that you could spot other people of other nationalities. I'd call you racist. But I know when I'm spotting a Canadian because we're the ones following the rules. It's not other hypochondriacs. It's us Canadians. You could tell which ones we are. So this person's full of it. They just want a virtue signal. And these are the people, Eric, that I'm saying that will just do whatever they can to not have to admit to themselves that they're wrong. This person can't even admit that they enjoyed being at a restaurant. They have to get home and they have to type this and pretend like they weren't having a good time there. And I want to keep reading it before we even, finish here. I want to make sure we fully encompasses insanity. You can see the difference in the media too. In Quebec, COVID totally dominates the news because there's almost nothing else happening. In Florida, it's the reverse. I checked the prestigious Miami Herald recently. On a day in Florida had risen to more than 70,000 new daily cases, almost twice as many per capita in Quebec, much like their hospitalizations. Context. 1, much higher population. 2, much older population. 3, Omicron, much milder. 4, you have lockdowns. Other people are allowed to go out. 5, hospitalizations. People are going to the hospital and being turned away because they've been so freaked out that they think they need to go to the hospital for anything, and the hospitals are jammed up. This is happening all over the place. Fact check it if you want. 6, if you want, you're insane. So if you want to track daily cases of the flu, of the cold, of somebody tripping over, then it's going to sound like a bad thing. If you want to track daily cases of car accidents, you're going to get yourself freaked out. How long, daily cases of gingivitis, things that don't matter. If you want to track them, then they're going to sound insane by how many numbers you are. The first mention of COVID anywhere in the paper was exactly 18 stories down with the headline, amid Omicron surge, hospitals are stretched thin. What could Florida lawmakers do? So again, Eric, this person wants to tell other people what to do. He wants his point of view to be in power so that these however many millions of people are living in Florida, 10, 12, 15, I don't know.
I'm not sure.
They have to care about what I have to care about. You need to be worried about what I need to be worried about. He's calling an entire state of people, from the voters to the non-voters to the Democrat voters to everybody, stupid. You don't do what I want you to do, therefore you're stupid. This entire state is so stupid that they don't even talk about COVID. They don't even follow the restrictions. They don't even care how many cases they have. And we see it in the next sentence. Ignore it as always, I guess. Meanwhile, the 19th story was Florida COVID update, 71,000 new cases. Hospital patients increase.
Okay, but just really quick,
Mm-hmm.
we saw, and I can't imagine that this place out in California is the only organization to have dropped the ball on the testing thing. So I just, and this is an honest question. This is not like a gotcha thing, but how do we really know that these testing facilities are even true? There's literally no way for us to fact check any of that. The only the only information that we're getting is from these media outlets. I mean, do we go to, whitehouse.gov or cdc.gov? I mean, we all know that those organizations can't be trusted. We all know that CNN was manipulating the ticker for the deaths and stuff. So, I mean, genuinely, how do we know who we can even trust as far as these tests are concerned? And we also know that Rochelle Walensky said that the antigen test, which is not to be confused with the PCR test, I believe, does not correlate. And I don't know, maybe you could fact check me on this, but because I just don't know what we can say. But Rochelle Walensky of the CDC, this is not me. She basically said that the antigen tests do not correlate directly with transmissibility. So what is this even for? What is this even about? So there's no go-to source that we can actually trust to report this honestly. Because even if you go to, I mean, and it works on both sides, right? Like obviously there's a whole bunch of people that are going to hate Joe Rogan, right? And say he's spreading misinformation, and Dr. Robert Malone and Dr. McCullough or whatever, they're all scam artists and we should remain afraid. And now Flu Rona is here. Remember when Flu Rona was a thing for like 2 weeks? So those
Yes.
people are going to look at us and say, well, those numbers are false. And I'm looking at you and I'm like, I don't trust those numbers either. So where do we really go to get the truth on this? Because it's definitely not this guy, whatever his name is from the Montreal Gazette. I mean, how do we believe these people? They've lied to us time and time again for the past 2 years. So I don't see how we're able to trust any of these people. And of course, they're
Well,
going to tell us that we're the misinformation.
Well, he needs you to trust him. He says it himself. Like, he talks about how come this isn't dominating the newspapers? Like, what's wrong with you? Because it's a problem to him that you don't listen to him. And there's even more. It's so interesting what this guy says. There's even more predictory actions, even more, collectivist thinking. And I want to get into that as well because it's just so fascinating. By any measure, Florida life seems surreal, as if everyone's wearing blinders, blah, 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 the deaths in a state with 2/3 the country's population. But there's a psychological upside since it doesn't dominate all life. We Montrealers live in a tense, depressing pandemic bubble, all COVID all the time, which is why many people avoid following the news. In Florida, entire conversations happen with the C word mentioned unless you bring it up, which of course I did. I asked
Well,
a
there's
group
a
of
different C
60-something.
word. There's a different C word that I think.
So he asked a bunch of seniors, and this is what they said. Our philosophy here is I look after myself and you look after yourself. If you want to wear a mask indoors, you should. If you don't want to go to a restaurant, you shouldn't. He decided he needed to go. He didn't have to go. When asked about our collective responsibility to protect others, she shrugged and said, "That's just not how we think here." I mentioned Quebec's recent curfew. They all just laughed, dismissing it as Canadian communism. Many others obviously agree as more people moved to Florida during the pandemic than any other state. So even though these people disagree and more people are moving there, they're still wrong. They've also looked into moving there since the pandemic. Tale of two worlds. Like most Canadians, I still think collective safety trumps some individual rights. Exactly. He is okay with being a communist. That's just all it is. He's okay. If you don't want to say he's a communist, fine. He doesn't believe in actual individual freedom. That's the problem here in Canada. We've got a guy going to Florida. He's willing to enjoy their freedoms. He's willing to participate in their freedoms. But he says, why aren't you guys obsessed with the thing I'm obsessed with about? Why aren't you guys worried about the things I'm worried about? How come you don't want to take care of the other people? I want to take care of you. And then the people say, I don't need you to take care of me. You don't want to go here. You don't have to. If you want to wear a mask, you can. It's not against the law. You want to do this, you don't have to, but you can't force me to do it. And he says, no, we need to force other people to do that. That's the better thing here. He says, like most Canadians, I still think collective safety trumps some individual rights. Now, of course, he means trumps any individual rights, because if you don't believe in bodily autonomy, you don't believe in not having to work without a vaccine, if you don't believe in all the things that have been taken away, then you don't believe in personal freedoms or any individual rights. I'd like to see what individual rights are more important than not having to be injected, not being able to work, and in many cases not being able to go and enjoy regular life. I'd like to know which rights he's talking about that haven't been taken away. So he's going to go on, and I'm going to make a prediction for the rest of this article, Eric, that he's going to go on and say that the stuff in Quebec is clearly working because of the numbers being lesser than Florida. Let's take a look. Let's see here. Our curfew was lifted, but we can't still legally invite somebody into our home. Nothing wrong with that, of course. Other provinces allow from 5 to 20 guests. Like the seasonal flu dropping many emergency measures, Ontario plans to do likewise. When, if ever, will Quebec? To fly home, I need a PCR test. Almost impossible to come by in Montreal with lineups hours long. Let's see. Meanwhile, every Florida pharmacy does free PCR tests, even for traveling foreigners. Seems bizarre in a country with no universal Medicare, where people are often bankrupt by medical bills. But when we went to our last free test at a pharmacy, there were a dozen people waiting, all wearing masks. The only place I'd seen that all week. For the first time, it felt a bit like home. So maybe we ran out of time there in the article, but it doesn't seem like he's got any regret of any of it, Eric. It doesn't seem like he's learned anything. Even the non-universal healthcare in Florida, he's flabbergasted as to how they have tests that are free, and he can't get them in his free country. He doesn't understand that while he thinks people who are unvaccinated are disgusting and people who are unmasked are unhealthy and risking it all, he doesn't understand that putting people under a collective, everything's for the greater good thing is you've now dehumanized somebody that you disagree with. And he probably still is inconsistent on universal health care, because a lot of these people don't think that COVID, people who aren't vaccinated should get care, which then where do you stop it? I mean, I know I'm putting words in his mouth in the last thing, but it's not a far jump to assume that. I don't think he can correct me if I'm wrong if he'd like. He should be watching. Nobody's taking him seriously after that. So, my point is that when somebody becomes the greater collective, everybody just becomes a number. And that's how here we've gotten into the situation where, well, as long as restaurants are closed, and people are getting tested and getting boosters, we don't need to have essential surgeries. We still can't have, people are still being sent home for surgeries, Eric, right now, because the hospitals are too full. And they've only had 5 years of this guy in power to make it better, but it doesn't happen.
So I'm genuinely curious, and maybe this is a silly question, but I mean, honestly, bro, you're an adult. Does anybody really believe this, or is he just getting a paycheck? I can't imagine that he actually goes home and thinks this. I mean, clearly he's flying around and he talks about, well, we got word on this nice condo in Miami, so me and my wife just went on down there. Like a lot of people can't just hop on a plane and go rent a condo for a week and just work remotely because they want to. So do you really truly believe this? Do you sit at home and say, I'm not gonna? Well, obviously he doesn't, because he went to Florida and he went to this restaurant. So he doesn't sit at home and say, well, I better not go outside because I want to make sure that I don't kill grandma. Or is it simply because this news organization that he works for is continuing to cut him the check to pump out this propaganda? I mean, it's the same thing with de Blasio, right? Or even Eric Adams. I mean, do they really? Nobody in year 3 of this, even, I mean, I know people who have, not many people, but I can think of 1 or 2 people who have actually come around and they're like, okay, you know what? Enough. I was playing the game at first, but it's over now. So when we're in year 3 of this, how does anybody truly believe that, well, yeah, if we just tell people that they can't go out for another couple days or another couple weeks, then it's all going to be over. It's complete nonsense. And I read an article on NPR. No, scratch that. I lied. I did not read an article on NPR. I saw a headline on an NPR Instagram post. And unfortunately, you scroll through these comments and there's a bunch of people that are literally in there saying, well, because the article was basically some kids in Kansas City, or they were interviewing young people, 20 somethings in Kansas City, and they were quotes, kind of over it. So this NPR reporter is basically trying to paint this or write this hit piece on just some random 20-year-olds in Kansas City because they were, quote, a little bit over it. And then you have hundreds of comments in there basically saying, well, these people are so out of touch. If they would just comply, it would be over. And it's like, what planet are you on? We've been doing this for 2 years. All the science is, quote unquote, flip flopped. And no, there's no possible way that if you had just complied, it would be over. That's not how it works. In fact, if you, I mean, you and me know that when you comply, that only is going to drag it on longer and longer. But this guy from the, what is it, Montreal Gazette, I can't imagine he really believes that. I think if you got him in a room by yourself, no cameras, no phones, no nothing, and just said, bro, and just you could explain it to him in 2 or 3 sentences, and he would have no choice. But you don't make it that far in life. You don't get to a point where you can write these stupid articles and jet set around and really be that stupid. And that's the same thing I say about people like AOC. Like, yeah, she's dumb and she wears this bright red lipstick and she says stupid things, but she's more evil than stupid, in my personal opinion. And that's what it always boils down to. It's malice or stupidity. Of course, there is a little bit of stupidity in all of this stuff, but I think it's like 70-30. It's like 70% malicious. These people know. I mean, think about it. We saw the 10 richest men in the world have upped their net value in the pandemic. So somebody's profiting off this, whether it's the pharmaceutical companies, whether it's Amazon or Bill Gates or whatever it is. Somebody is doing very well off this, and they're pretending that it's for your health because that's the only excuse that will ever work. There's no other way to convince people that this is good, right? I mean, just like we saw the Time magazine article and Molly Ball, who said, well, there was a cabal of elites who fortified the election to save it because you people were too stupid to vote for the corrupt regime and against your own best interest. So we did it for you, for your safety, for your own health. That's the only excuse. Let me know, what other excuse can you give people that would allow them to go along with this? Honest question.
Well, to your first question about do they actually believe it, I'm going to say that deep down, no. Just like this guy didn't write, like, he was fine while being there, I think. But I think it's just like a teenager in the sense that this person's been on their phone for a long time. And when they want to, virtue signal, they're going to put out the proper signals that they think will get them, the clout, the attention, whatever. So he's happy to fly to Florida. He's happy to go to a restaurant there. He's happy to live this life. I mean, he knows about Florida. Everybody knows what's going on in Florida. You didn't have to go down there. You didn't have to go to a restaurant. You didn't have to sit there and complain about other people, which you probably didn't in real life. Who waited till later. You didn't have to do any of that, but you did it anyways. If you really thought that these people were that stupid, then you wouldn't have gone and done any of these other things, which kind of shows you to your point that he probably doesn't care. But he can't help but, post a photo of his own ass. He can't help but post a photo of, him doing the rock climbing or the suspended bridge or the zip lining, because he wants people to think that he's a good person. He wants people to think, just like you post these photos or videos that your life is exciting, you want to post the stuff about COVID so people think that you're a good person. Even though I went and did all this stuff, even though, like AOC, I went to go to a drag show, I went to a party, I did this and that. I'm still one of you. I'm still a good person. And so long as you front that way, then you're still going to be able to, get into the proper circles. If he came back and he said, you know what, guys, Florida's great. It's the greatest place ever. I don't want to come back here anymore. I liked how they did things. Then he's shunned. But if he comes back to China land and he goes, I went to a different place, but nothing's as good as Beijing. Nothing's as good as China. China's still number one. Then you're going to still be accepted into China. So it's the same thing like this. He's got to be accepted into the cult, into the group think. So you have to say that when you can't come back. He can't come back and write an article for the Montreal Gazette that says Florida's doing it better than here. They're not going to print that. So he's got to come back and he's got to, shoot off his fireworks that spell out, govern me harder. And that's just the way it is, unfortunately. And we call those people cowards where I come from.
Absolutely. But so there's no other excuse, though, for this. There's nothing else that you could say that would allow people to continue on with this charade. And the only thing that well, you don't want your grandma to die. It's for your own safety. There's no other. I can't. I mean, I just can't think of anything. But all those points you make are totally makes total sense. Of course, yeah, you're right. He can't say, "Wow, I spent a week down in Florida. It was amazing. Everybody should go there." He can't say that. Obviously, it wouldn't work. So I think we're saying the same thing. Of course, that he doesn't really care, but he has to pretend like he cares, even though he's living. I mean, it sounds like he's living a pretty good life. If you can just, your buddy gave you a tip on a condo. That was like a weird thing for me too. It's like you didn't book a hotel, you didn't book an Airbnb, you rented a short term condo. Those don't come cheap. But again,
Yeah,
I
I know,
don't
right?
I don't know what the Montreal Gazette pays, but there's there's no other excuse Fauci or Walensky or Joy Reid or any of these news people can say except for you're basically gonna die. And they tried a lot of things. I mean, think about all the things we heard for the past 5 years. Well, the president is an agent of Russia. Oh, the president pees on hookers. Oh, all these
Hmm.
things that they thought were going to get you to not like this guy, and it worked on a boatload of people. But they just kept, oh, he's a racist. Oh, he hates these people. Like they just kept pushing it up and up and up until finally they were like, well, you know what? If you don't do what we say, you're gonna die. It's for your safety. If you don't obey every single thing we say, then you're just gonna die. We tried all the other stuff. It didn't really work, and now it's all collapsing. And now we have Joe Biden coming out and saying things that will get us banned from YouTube for questioning elections. He is now questioning the results of an election that hasn't even happened yet because he can see the writing on the wall, or somebody at least told him that there was some writing on the wall, because I don't think he actually knows what's going on.
Something I read earlier today, or maybe it was yesterday, about a different article we read. Remember when we read the thing about the anal swabs in China, and it turned out to be just like from China's official PR people? Well, they're saying it's back. So this time people are circulating this. I don't know how much I believe. It's a very short article. They just said it's undignified, obviously. Claims the virus test involves. I think they're just putting it out there again. It's another distraction. Haha, look what we made them print. And there's not much other than Chinese newspaper said at least 27 people underwent the anal swab test in an apartment building in Beijing where an old woman had caught Omicron. So, of course, China's going to do stuff like this on their own people, probably to punish them. But this doesn't mean like the stuff like brings back anal swab testing in the world's most brutal lockdown 2 weeks before Winter Olympics. So this doesn't mean that people are going to have to do it at the Olympics. Japan said that it's undignified and psychological stress. I don't think people are actually going to get it done to them, Eric. I think it's just China saying, hey, look, we did this to 20 people. Who knows if that's true or false?
The photo was hilarious, though, the little diagram.
Yeah, write articles about it so that you're not actually talking about like the Uyghurs or something. That's how I take it.
And Fauci's probably loving this. He's like, oh, yeah, like we're going to see if we can make them do it here. And we're going to be really safe. It's like, dude, you're 80 years old. Nobody trusts you anymore. Of course, you would love to see everybody, have to do this before they got on an airplane to go from California to New York. If
It says
Fauci
you got to
had
keep
his
it up
way.
there for 5 to 10 minutes. Is what I think that
No.
means. It says
Oh, is
5.
that what that means? Yeah,
or maybe
no,
it's
you're
5 to
right.
10 seconds, probably. Swab for 5 to 10 seconds.
Okay,
Make sure you put one foot on the toilet seat. You got your
and this
lube
was
here.
this was it was a
And
joke
then you put it in the
by,
next person's mouth.
it was a joke by that comedian. He went really viral for like a Fauci impression a long time ago, or I don't know, maybe 6 or 8 months ago, and he was like, COVID could come up through the toilet infecting people when you live in a
Yeah.
large building. Like that's what this reminds me of. It's like, dude.
And then there was that article that said you can get it through this piping system. Did you see that?
I did not see that, but I believe it.
There's an article that this is
believe
going.
it.
I'm going to feed you your content for the week here. There's an article that says you can get in an apartment or condo complex. You can get COVID through the plumbing in the toilet.
Okay, well, I think you're definitely more likely to have a snake or something come up through the toilet than you are to have COVID come through. So you know what? I don't know. This is just the world we live in now. Like I said, it's the new climate change. So this is going to happen forever. We're just going to have to continue to
True.
ignore them, just like we ignore their climate change things. Of course, they're going to still shove it down your throat like, you can't drive that car. You can't do this. Don't eat meat. Eat the bugs. And it's just going to happen like this
Gotta eat the bugs.
Got to eat the bugs to save grandma and to save the world. You got to eat the bugs. Put this Q-tip in your butt, and it'll all be okay.
So this was on the other page, but subscribe to Unauthorized Opinions on YouTube. If you're on Getter, I'm going to go ahead and send you the link right now for the people on Getter. Thank you for everybody watching on Getter. I'm going to say please subscribe, and maybe this will be like Inception. But thanks for all the views on Getter today. It's great. Thanks for everybody watching on Twitter and then the alternate YouTube channels. Please watch us. I think we should close on some Making the Band 2, something that we both know and love. And I don't know. We could imagine an entire channel of us rewatching Making the Band 2 from start to finish.
That might be something, bro. That might be a good idea.
If you really want to do it, and if I feel like we need like another person, if you know anybody who wants to sit and watch all of Making the Band 2, we'll do one episode a week or something. Because it's got to be like, 30 minutes? Maximum hour-long time for something's like 42 minutes or something on TV, right?
Yeah, I think they were like an hour on TV, so yeah, it'll probably be less than 45 minutes. I would totally be down to do that. And I vaguely remember it, so it would still be like sort of new. You know what I mean? Like I don't remember exactly what happened. Just obviously which at the time wasn't called viral, but now it's like a viral moment. And I don't even know if that was at the beginning of the series or at the end. So that might be something. I think you got something there.
Hopefully we can do it on somebody's channel who isn't censored. So we can just try to ride an algorithm that won't censor us. Maybe like a comedian's channel or something. But anyways, we'll work really hard this week, quote unquote, to get it on Spotify and Apple because the censorship's really stupid. I mean, not that most of our numbers are on Twitter and Getter now, but it's nice to have the YouTube audience potentially there. 43,000 or whatever it is. So Making the Band 2 was a great show that Puff Daddy did in the early 2000s about making a rap group, and it went insanely. So thanks everybody for watching. Eric Butler, TatumReport.com. His book, you got the book? Hold it up.
I got the book.
New York, Gotham City, 2020. Corpse, tire, pile. Who knows what it is? We'll see you guys next week.
The word is bond. My cheesecake is in the least bit soft or brittle or not on point, your will go back. Somebody gonna quit. Somebody ain't got the heart, the stamina to be bad boy. Somebody ain't got the passion, the drive, the intensity to want it. Somebody's mental capacity breaks at a certain point. I need to see it now. I want to see it when I'm 2 million in. There's things in life that ain't gonna be fair, and this is one of them. Get your faces right. Look at his face. Look at his face.
Oh,
look at
no, son.
Yo, Frederick, I can see Miami's calling you. It's hot there. It's hot there. In Philly, you got a big mouth. You ain't really that nice, neither. He's not really that nice.
You know what Junior's is at? Yo, fam, Puffy just told us to go to the store in Brooklyn and bring him back a cheesecake and walk.
Turn it up, Jordan.